Hi everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at how to retarget Rokoko motion capture, or any mocap for that matter, to a character rigged with Rigify in Blender. It's easy to do so long as you retarget to the bones of the character instead of to the animation rig. We're also going to take a quick look at an easy way to tweak your mocap using animation layers. Let's jump into it. Okay, so here I am in Rokoko Studio, and I'm going to export out one of the sample animations that comes pre-packaged with Rokoko Studio. So you can go and download Rokoko Studio right now for free from rokoko.com, and these specific animations will be in there. So this martial arts animation was recorded using the suit. Looks good, and I'm going to export this out of Rokoko Studio. So when I'm exporting to Blender, I always choose an FBX that is in binary, which is what it needs to be in to import it correctly. We don't need a Bonnie mesh in this case, and I'm going to stick with the Maya IK skeleton. I'll set the FPS to 30, and then I'll hit export. Okay, mocap exported, now let's jump into Blender. So we'll be following a very basic Rigify workflow that we found just based on a tutorial that we found on YouTube. The link to that tutorial is in the description below. We'll also use the same model that they used in the tutorial, which they're offering for free on Blend Swap. So you can go and download that to follow along. Okay, so here we are with that file from Blend Swap open with this simple female character. And the first thing we're going to do is make sure that Rigify is enabled by going to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and then searching for Rig. And here you just want to make sure that the checkbox is enabled. While I'm here, I'm also going to make sure that our Rokoko plugin is enabled, make sure the checkbox is ticked, and if you need information on how to get the Rokoko plugin installed, you can find that info in our other Blender tutorials on our YouTube channel. So I'm going to rig this mesh just using a basic human Metarig. I'm going to time-lapse through the process of adding bones and moving them into position, but I just followed that tutorial that we put down in the description below. Once I'm done moving the bones into position, I'm ready to bind or parent the bones to our mesh. So this is where I think some people have been running into problems with Rigify and retargeting. Normally when you're using Rigify, you might finish, setting up all the bones and then go to Rigify buttons and hit Generate Rig. And this will give you a more traditional animation rig with which you could do some keyframe animations. That's really what these rigs are built for. However, when you're retargeting mocap to this rig, it's not necessary to actually have this animation style rig. And indeed, it can make things more difficult because it's adding a bunch of constraints to your bones to allow you to manipulate the rig using these animation tools. So we've added it for now, but we're just going to hide it and then we're just going to ignore it. We do, however, need to bind our skeleton to our mesh, so I'll select the mesh and then select my skeleton, and then parent using automatic weights. And there we go. Now we have a character that was rigged using Rigify that is ready to be retargeted. Okay, so now if I open up my Rokoko plugin tab, you can see that we have this panel called Retargeting. So I'll go ahead and import that mocap that we exported from Rokoko Studio. Just go to File, Import FBX, then find that exported mocap and make sure to check Automatic Bone Orientation and import the mocap. If we hit play, we can see that it's all imported correctly. And now to retarget this mocap onto our character, we will add it into the source field of the Rokoko plugin. And then in the target field, we'll add our Metarig. And again, this is where I think people are getting confused and maybe adding in the rig that was generated by Rigify instead of the Metarig, which contains the actual bones that our character is parented to or rigged with. So after we've added our mocap and our character's skeleton, again, not the rig generated by Rigify, but the skeleton, we can hit Build Bone List. So this bone list generated automatically for me, but if it doesn't for you, you can go in and manually add the corresponding bones into these fields. Here, for instance, you can see that this spine bone has the incorrect corresponding spine 02, so I'll change that. And then you can hit Save down here, and this bone list will be generated automatically the next time. Finally, because both our character and our mocap are in a T-pose at frame 0, these are going to retarget perfectly. But if you're using a character in an A pose, for example, you can check out our other Blender retargeting tutorials to troubleshoot any issues you might run into. So as long as these two are both in a T-pose, I can hit retarget, and there we go. Now we have successfully retargeted our mocap to a character rigged with Rigify. So before we finish, let's go over an easy way to tweak your mocap after it's been retargeted. So right here, let's say we wanted to get rid of this clipping. We don't want this arm going into the body, right? And some people have commented that they want to use the Rigify animation rig, the rig that we're ignoring, to tweak the mocap. But unfortunately, this won't work. Instead, you can open up a new panel and select non-linear animation. And now if we hit this little button down here next to the track, we can add what's called an animation layer. And this will allow us to tweak the rotation of the bones without interfering with that original mocap animation. In fact, I'll even lock the original animation just to make sure that we can't touch it. So to get rid of this clipping, I'll select the bone I want to tweak, which is this forearm bone. And then I'll open up the side panel of the animation editor and make sure that Combine is selected and not Replace. Then I will set a keyframe at the beginning of where I want my tweak to occur. And then at the end. And this will ensure that the tweak will just affect that time between the keyframes. You can also apply keyframes just by hitting S. So now I'll go to the middle of those two keyframes and I will apply my tweak. I'll just kind of rotate the arm out of the body a little bit. Add a keyframe, and there you go. Again, as long as you set that animation layer to Combine instead of Replace, you should be able to tweak your animations without affecting that original mocap. So we hope this answered some of your questions about using the Rokoko retargeting tool in combination with Rigify, and please put any questions in the comments below. We'll have plenty more Blender tutorials coming soon. Thanks everyone, bye bye.